Good morning, everybody. Hello, hello. Anybody home? Dan Doyle, good morning to you. Hello, Ron. I am back. Wow, what a concept. Hey, John. Hey, Miles. Hey, Johnny. Sound is good. All right. Yeah, I'm actually back to using the old streaming software I used prior to leaving. Hi, Brad. Glad you guys can hear me. All right. All right, just a quick recap before the markets open here. Actually, they're opening in a moment, 30 seconds actually. Let's pay attention to the Dow Mini, and then we'll go ahead and double check. Actually, crude oil as well. Yeah, crude oil losing its first trade and now in its second trade. So short from 79.59, targeting 79.42, 33, 23, and 14, and the stop is at 79.82. So let's see if we can get on track. Crude getting below $80 a barrel. That's a good sign. And the Dow Mini does have a short at 36,142. That happened quickly, getting in sync. And it looks like it's already come down and hit its money management. That's a trade you kind of had to have had placed in advance. If you got into the trade, move your stop to break even. If you miss that trade, then it's gone too far too fast. Don't try to chase it. Soybeans moving too quickly, I think, unfortunately, because it was a nice winter. And the pound Aussie flat waiting for a setup. Unleaded gas. Unleaded gas did pretty nice this morning. Nice trade here. Long trade, hitting all its targets. That one's one and done with Spotlight Master Suite. Pretty straightforward there. The YM did come down and hit its targets. Question of whether one was prepared to take it. And crude oil, that trade's still going. Of course, contracts are going to be rolling over. At least the energy contracts, probably by, I'm guessing, Wednesday, or at least no later than Thursday. We have to check the volume and see if we roll over sooner. How you guys all doing? All right, crude oil has hit its money management and stop should move down. Missed its target by one tick. First trade this morning, unfortunately. Yeah, two, actually. It's had two losing trades. Crude oil. Crude oil off to a rough start. Breaking lower here. And then getting long and then short. So kind of tough this morning on crude oil with Spotlight. And we do have the Russell E Mini chart playing in the upper left corner, and that one just had its first trade of the morning, hitting its targets. Well, missed target 2 by a tick, looks like. And crude looking like it wants to go lower. We'll see if it can. It's trying to get to 42. It's gotten as low as 43. Check that out, Ron. All right, so it did just hit 42, so it got to that first target there of 17 cents. Let me see what you got there, Ron. Yeah, exactly. So 79.64, but it stopped and reversed, unfortunately. Well, if you didn't stop and reverse, then that worked out in your favor. Good for you. But you could see here the blue trade, and with the stop and reverse adjustment, it hit it a little bit later, right in here. So no really avoiding it unless you just avoided it. No, it didn't trigger until later. I mean, the trade didn't cancel. So I think you just lucked out on that one. Now you can see the trade remains valid all the way until this bar triggers it in here, you see. So good for you if you didn't take it. So if you say it canceled, though, I don't see how. I'm looking at the chart here. Where did it cancel? I'm just curious what you saw. Again, I'm happy that you won on that trade, but just looking at the chart here, I just don't see it. I don't see where it canceled. You know, so much depends on how you have your calculator settings. For example, if you have the calculator set up with the adjustment so that it makes the adjustment for you, then you would have ended up with 2 bars closing on the other side of the balance line. And then that would cancel the trade, right? And is that what you're referring to? So, for example, this is where there's nuance involved and you just have to be consistent in your approach. So if I open up the calculator and I go to use stop and reverse adjustments and set that to true, and you can see the next field, it says stop and reverse adjust ticks is 2. So it's going to make the 2 tick adjustment on stop and reversals. Then the calculator is going to push the entry up like it did, and it didn't touch the entry. And then you have 2 closes below the signal line or the balance line, and then you can see that cancel the trade. Of course, you have another trade that comes up, so that maybe is problematic. The reason why I don't use a stop and adjustment tool is because it makes all stop and reverse adjustments for the history of the chart, not just the one trade I'm interested in. And so that changes the sequence of trades throughout the chart. That's not necessarily a bad thing if that's what you're tested, if you've tested it and you like your results and that's what you're used to trading, then that's fine. Good morning, Pamela. And yeah, there is a subsequent stop and reverse, but I'm pointing this out as a learning thing, how the calculator works and how nuanced it is, because if you don't do the stop and reverse adjustment tool, then you have to decide, a rule on when do you cancel the reversing trade. Right? So you could say, well, I moved the entry up, and so 2 closes on the other side of the balance line should cancel it. But the way I've always done it is that if the trade triggers in, now it's not, I mean, the adjustment is to try to stay short, right? But the fact that the original trade triggered in means that now it's a get in sync situation. And so 2 closes on the other side of the balance line doesn't really cancel the trade because it would have triggered in without the adjustment. Now, that doesn't mean you have to do it that way. You could always instead just say 2 closes below the balance line cancels the trade, but this is not how I've always done it. I've always assumed that, okay, the trade triggered in unadjusted, but I'm still short, but now it's a get in sync situation. If it comes back up, I could still take that trade. And that often works, because if it comes back up, that's because it wants to go higher and it's time to flip your position. At least that's how I look at it. So I try not to overthink it too much. I'm just pointing out to you the various ways you can handle such a thing. If you decided to cancel the trade and you don't see another trade printing, that's a third way, because you're only going with what's showing on the chart. If you don't use a stop and adjustment tool, it's nuanced. There's no perfection here. What you have to do is choose a method and stick with it. If you like your results, run with it. But I just kind of walk through this situation, and there's like 3 different ways to handle this. As long as you do it the same way each and every time, I think you're going to be fine. You can't just conveniently pick and choose as you go, because then you know what trade plan are you actually trading. Let me know if that's confusing, or if it makes sense, or if you guys understand what I'm talking about. But that's the reason I don't use the stop and reversal adjustment tool in the calculator, except when I need it, which is, it just depends, but it changes the sequence of the entire chart, and you have to be aware of that and how that affects everything. And hopefully I didn't just confuse everyone or bore you all to tears. But if you have a question to follow up on that, let me know. Ron, it worked out for you. That's great. As long as you're clear on your methodology, I think that's the big takeaway from all this. Be clear on how you do it. Make sure your rules are clear so that you could duplicate it and do it the same way every time. Because like this, you get measurable results that you can depend on. Once you start getting subjective, that becomes a slippery slope. You have to project yourself trading down the road. What's it going to be like 2 months from now, 3 months from now, 6 months from now? If your subjectivity is undefined, then you have a hard time getting measurable results, and it ends up leading to the destruction of a well-defined trade plan, if that makes sense. And I'm not saying that's what you're doing, but I am bringing it up to everyone's benefit, because that's what usually leads to a good trade plan becoming a broken trade plan. Anyway, crude came down, hit target 2, then stopped out. So got caught up in this early morning up, down, sideways. Wasn't ready to move lower yet when it broke through on this short. It did get oversold and gave that long setup, which certainly didn't help. And then it finally broke lower. So if you're looking for another trade on crude, just if you're following this and you know, how many trades do you do in a mini session? 3 or 4 perhaps. There's a short there at 79.38, and that's the exhaustion off of the 20 SMA, and hopefully you have a nice break lower reaction into the line, which could set up a second leg lower. The crude's already down 1.7%. See if it's going to test these lows, but that's 79.38 targeting 79.24, 16.08, and 7,900, and the stop is at 79.58. And that technically would be the 4th trade of this mini session. So that also leads to the question of whether you do 4 trades between 9 and 10. Does anybody have any questions about any of these details or issues or topics or whatever that I just explained? Let me know. Yeah, sure. So one thing you can do, Johnny, is well, first of all, I think you're referring to what strategy again? Catapult? You could, I think there's a workspace you can grab off of the member site, but once you have a desktop open, you can go to, all right, Catapult. So you're on TradeStation 10, and I don't have TradeStation 10 loaded here. You have to right click. Basically, you're going to go, I think, new, and then, like for me, it would be new trading app window, and for you, it might be called something else. Maybe it's called new chart or something. The easiest thing to do would be to just grab the workspace from the Catapult member site and open that, because then that's going to open some charts, one of them being crude oil. It's probably a continuous chart, which is the @ symbol and then CL. So you would then change, well, I would save that workspace as, first of all, make sure you put it in the My Work folder in the right place, so that it's not in your download folder, but actually in the proper TradeStation folder. And then, so you save as and have a working copy of the workspace. So you have 2, one that you could use as a template and one that you can then change. And yeah, you have to log in as administrator for TS10. That's true. Johnny, I could help you with that. You just have to be a tiny bit patient, just because I just got back and I'm still juggling a bunch of ping pong balls that are up in the air. Try to get my feet back on the ground, so to speak. Well, you don't have to do that. That is one, you can do that. You could also log into the member site. Let me see if I could show you. 1 second. All right, so you have the member site here, right? So you can go to energy futures, trade plans, and workspaces. And then when you click on that, you see here where on the left it says TradeStation Workspaces. You can click on that. And then here you have, oh, I see. Well, you have a heating oil and an unleaded gas. So there's no crude oil workspace, which is fine. You could open up one of those or download both those workspaces, open one up, and then you can just copy the chart and save the chart. So once you do that, you copy and then save. I'm sorry, copy and paste. And then you'll open up a new chart, and then all you have to do is change the symbol to CLZ21 and make sure you get the right chart. I think you probably want the 0.08 momentum bar. But basically, that's how you do it. And I could show you that. Once you get used to it, it'll become easy and second nature. But that would be the easiest thing to do. Download the workspace. It already has the indicators on it, so you don't have to then load them. And then I'll also show you how you can save a workspace as a template. So once you have a workspace on there, you'll be able to right-click. And of course, with this is 9.5, it's a little different. But ultimately, you're looking to save analysis group. I think in TradeStation 10, it might be save study group. And when you click on, whoops, I clicked off of it. When you click on that, then you could call it something. Like you can call it Catapult CL or whatever. And once you have it saved as a template, then even if you accidentally delete the chart, you could easily put that template right back on the chart with all your inputs and indicators and everything. So TradeStation, once you learn a few basic things, you'll start doing it the same way over and over and over and over. I'll be right back, guys. Hey, Johnny, I got an idea for you. I'm gonna go ahead and copy you a couple charts, and I'll just send it to you, and then you could just open up the work. You could open up the workspace. Let's see. There's one other thing I might be able to do also. Let's try something. Well, I was going to do remote access and open up TradeStation 10 on my VPS, but I don't have the info on this computer. So what I'm going to do instead is make you a workspace and send it to you. Hopefully I don't crash TradeStation as a result. Also, don't remember the crude is going to be rolling over to CLF as in Frank 2-2 this week. All right, well, I made the mistake of opening up a workspace, and now it's kind of slowing me down here. I got to wait for it to finish opening. Well, I've seen a lot of people step in since I started broadcasting, so let me just say good morning again to everybody. It's nice to be back. I've been gone for like 2 months. This is my first day back on my main trading computer, walking on my treadmill while I'm hosting the trade room like I've done for so many years. And it's a strange but nice feeling to finally have all my tools in front of me and the power of a nice big custom desktop computer versus a laptop, which was fine, but just not with the same ability as the big desktop. So that's nice. Amazing how out of date my symbols are. All right, well, you guys are awfully quiet this morning. Oh, wow, Pamela. That's bad news. Make sure you set up your backup schedule so that you can back everything up and then go back to an earlier version. Like back it up once a week or something like that. That'll save you all that grief. Well, yeah, so okay, that's really weird. Maybe save your backup to a somewhere. Gosh, I don't even have an answer for that. It seems like if you just reinstall TS and then go back and uh, access your backup file, that it seems like that should do it. But what do I know? All right, so I'm just creating a workspace here, and then I'll show you what I did. Yeah, I know TS10 is buggy. That's why I've stuck with 9.5. 9.5 is buggy also, and they don't support it anymore. So it's like damned if you do, damned if you don't, which really sucks. All right, so there's two basic default catapult crude oil charts with the 8-tick momentum bar. One of them is just using our typical 6 and 2 catapult lines, and the second one is using the a 5 and 10, right, slower lines. So the one on the left is the 6 and the 2, the one on the right is the 5 and the 10, and these are the December contract, so in a couple days these symbols will need to be changed. You could always make them continuous charts just so that you have the template, but I mean, either way, it doesn't matter. So then it's just a matter of fast testing and coming up with what you like the best. I think I like the 5 and the 10 better than the default 6 and 2 catapult lines. With the 6 and the 2, just walking you through this. Got long, and it just barely missed its target 2 by 1 tick, and then stopped and reversed. And these stop and reversals, they don't usually have a 2-tick adjustment like we use with Spotlight or Counterpunch. With your testing, you may decide you want to have the stop and reverse adjustment, but I found with Catapult that I don't know that it's as productive. So you have to determine that on your own. I would say start without doing the adjustment first and only make a stop and reverse adjustment if you find it helps you over time. But you could see in 2 trades, this trade plan finishes with a great result, right? Because it gets long at 79.78 and short at 79.74, losing 4 ticks, maybe a couple more in slippage, coming and going, depending on how you got your setup. But you kind of have to use a market order for stop and reversal. So you can count on slippage for sure on the reversing trade. And then it hits all its targets and then some. And that's a winning session. And literally, by the time it stops out on the trailer, you're 38 minutes into the session, starting at 9, right? But the first trade came at 9:15. So really, it was a 28-minute trading, live in the market trading experience. So that's the 2 and the 6. That's basically the default. There are a couple minor changes you need to be aware of in the calculator, which are I talk about in the member site. And basically it's turning your key levels on and then changing one of your key levels to a 0, from a 2 to a 0. That's it. And that's the same with the second plan using the 5 and the 10. So it's really easy. There's nothing to do other than that. If you were to keep trading, the first trade loses. And that, I mean, the next trade, this one at 9:48, you should be finished, but let's just look at it, keep looking at it. The next trade is going to lose 12 ticks. And then the trade after that, it makes 13 ticks and 17 ticks. It just depends on what target you go to. So those 2 trades work out in your favor also, if those were your 2 trades. Then the next trade breaks even. Okay, that's the default, pretty much the default one. Now, if we look at the 5 and the 10, this is totally different. But it pretty much worked out the same. The first trade lost a little bit more, but not much. And the second trade won. And that one also is 2 trades in and wins with 2 trades. You don't get as many trades with the 5 and the 10 catapult line. It kind of cleans up some noise. But you need to test and see which one you like the best. They both have their pros and cons. So the next thing you need to know is if you get this workspace, Johnny, I'm going to send this to you. You're going to want to move it to the right place. So you want to make sure you go to your TradeStation folder, save workspace as, go to your C drive, your file, program files x86, TradeStation 10, my work. And if you can't find it, just look at another workspace and follow the same path. Just make sure it gets into the my work folder. Okay? That way you keep all your workspaces in the right place. You don't want a bunch of them in your download folder and some in your my work folder and who knows where else, right? Keep them organized. And then there's some other Catapult workspaces you can get, the unleaded gas and the heating oil. And I think I have, yeah, so here's unleaded. I forget what trade plan this is. So the first trade of the day happens here. Not sure why these didn't. Yeah, it looks like it's the Ema Filter, actually. Yeah, the Ema Filter. That purple line filters out a couple winners, which is unfortunate. And you may decide after testing you don't want the Ema Filter. I have found that it actually works. Yeah, I mean, the first trade was able to get to a target 2, which is 28 ticks, and you can take profit at target 2. You're only risking 23 ticks. And if you want to just scalp out at a 28 tick target, you have a favorable risk reward ratio and a real high winning percentage, you'd be one and done. Of course, if you're going to a bigger target, targets 2 and 3, you're not going to win quite as often, but you'll win more when you win. Unfortunately, in this case, the next 2 trades lose, and then a break-even trade, and then a winner that hits all your targets. So you want to make sure you don't overtrade, and then another trade that's winning, or at least it's break-even, and will possibly win. We'll see. So just to give you an idea of the Ema Filter, because this is just knowing your strategy and your tools and what they do, and it's really important you know what everything does. They're all in there for a reason. If I were to, let me move this out of the way for a sec. If I go to the filters section, and here it says use Ema Filter, and I set it to false. Remember that lilac purple colored line is the EMA, the 14 EMA. So if I set that to false, it should print some trades. And it did, and both of them broke even. This one and this one. So even though we turn the filter off, now how do you change that? Maybe the money management needs to be a little looser. You know, I gave you guys a good starting point. There's an infinite number of ways to use a strategy, and you may find after a period of time with experience with the strategy that you want a looser money management. Instead of hitting target 1, moving the stop to break even, you force it to target 2 instead, or target 1 plus additional ticks, right? Because this is a 20 tick momentum bar. You probably want to go a little more than that to move your stop. I mean, these are all things you can do. And then that changes stuff, right? But again, that you don't just change it willy-nilly. Like this moves a stop if it goes to target 1 in 10 ticks. I mean, I don't know. Is that reasonable with a 20 tick momentum bar? Maybe not. What if you forced it to go to target? I mean, it's set to go to target 1. If you don't want it to go to target 1, you have to add more of a minimum tick size. This is where the automation can really help. But let's just say, let's go 25 ticks, which is 5 ticks beyond the range of the bar. I don't know if this is enough, but if you do that, yeah, maybe not quite enough, because also the moving stop, the trailer is moving also. So what happens is it actually is trailing the purple line, and that's where that stop, see how the stop, you can hardly see it, but it's not only going to break even, it's also going 2 ticks below the trailer. So you kind of need to affect both. So you also have to then either start trailing at target 1, or maybe you just start trailing at target 2, which would be 150% of target 1, right? And then you could still say it needs to go 25 ticks or something like that. I don't know. I'm messing up this trade plan, but I'm just trying to teach you how this works. So once you do that, you should have this, and that's the catapult trade. These are the trades you want, right? So what you don't want to do is stop out too soon, but you also want to stop out if the trade's going to lose without giving away too much. And where do you find the fine line, and where do you find the right numbers, etc.? And that, the only way to know, comes from testing. But look how different this trade plan ends up looking today by giving the trade more room to develop at the start. Big difference, yeah? Not only that, but all of a sudden the next trades change too. And they all look better. I mean, all those trades now look a lot better, don't they? Maybe I'll just leave it like this for a while. Johnny, I'll Skype that over to you. I'll do it right now before I forget. So anyway, guys, did you know you could do that with Catapult? Catapult can do a lot of cool things. It's really important to spend time learning how to best use it. All right, does anyone have any questions about what I just showed you? The couple things to keep in mind is that there are two stop movements that occur as the trade is progressing. Look how it affected the earlier trades too. Anyway, the first one is the break-even trade, and that's where it has to hit target one and go a certain amount of ticks. So I increased it to 25 ticks, so it has to hit target one and go 25 ticks. It's a 20-tick range bar, so it makes sense it should go more than the length of one bar, don't you think? Just logically thinking it through. I don't know what the test results will show, but that's one thing I did. And the second thing you have to remember is that not only is it going to move the stop to break even, but it's also going to start trailing. And it's going to start trailing the 14 exponential moving average, which is that purple line. You can see it. You don't have to trail that line. You could trail a number of other ways, and you could even change your trailing method partway through. So instead of it coming all the way back up to the 14, you could start implementing a 1 or 3 bar trailer, or you can trail one of the faster catapult lines, etc. You could do all that. But the thing to realize is the way it's set up default is that if it hits target one and goes 10 ticks, it's going to start trailing. And you could see how the EMA splits between the entry and the target. So I also turned off the filter, because if I turn the filter back on, it'll eliminate those trades altogether. And that's another thing you need to test. But apart from the filter, giving the trade more room before it starts trailing was necessary also. And so I made it begin trailing at target 2. You have more control over the trailer as far as where it starts trailing, because it's a multiplier. It's what percentage to target 1, basically. So if you go 150%, that's the same as a target 2. If you go 200%, that's the same as a target 3. So you have more control, and you could set minimum ticks that it has to go. So the trailer has a lot more controls, but you can still control the break-even stop as well, just by increasing the minimum number of ticks once target 1 is hit. So you have a lot of control over it. It makes a huge difference. Now, we're just looking at one example. One day does not make a sample set, but you can see today it makes a big difference on almost every trade that we're looking at. Apart from a couple losers, everything else pretty much wins fairly easily, just by giving it room. Because if you stop out too aggressively at break even, it would have been a winner, and now you only break even. You have to take another trade. The next 2 in a row lose. That changes the entire session, doesn't it? Now, here's a really good example of the trailer happening instead of the break-even trade. On this one, this is another one that the filter would have eliminated, because the moving average comes between the entry and the target. So instead of going to break-even stop when it hits the target 1 and 5 ticks, well, it also hit target 2, and it went to 25 ticks, right? Target 1 and 25 ticks is what I meant to say. So it doesn't go to break even. Instead, it starts trailing the moving average. And that works pretty well, because it had already hit target 3 and beyond before stopping out at close to target 1, based on how the trailer is situated. Make sense? What else can we look at here? So here's a look at heating oil. And a similar situation, you could see how the EMA probably filtered out a bunch of stuff. Either that or the start time. The start time could also filter things out. Let's see what it's. Yeah, the start time says 9:30. So that's why you don't see anything before 9:30. The money management is still 10. It's still small. And if we were to change the money management, it looks like this trade would have been a full winner. I don't want to go changing stuff willy-nilly. I already showed you how to do it. I did see another heating oil plan in here. Let's look at it. Yeah. This looks like the same chart, basically, except it's a continuous chart. All right, guys. Well, unless there's any more questions, that pretty much does it for me. Hope you enjoyed the session today. Don't forget, John will be in here tomorrow. I'll be back on Wednesday. We are getting close to Thanksgiving week. So I will do Monday the 22nd. I will not do Wednesday the 24th. I'm going to be out of town again, this time for family. But I will see you on Wednesday the 17th. I will see you on Monday the 22nd. And then after that, of course, Monday the 29th. And that brings us into December. Wow. Hard to imagine. So I'll give you a moment to collect your thoughts. Let me know if you have any last minute questions. Otherwise, I'm going to say goodbye. Hope you all have a wonderful day. Don't forget to hit the thumbs up button, please. It really helps. Everyone have a great day. I'll see you next time. Bye, everyone.